Is there a strategy that'll help you grow your company faster? CEO Sales Strategies is an investigative business podcast for entrepreneurial people who never stop asking questions. Highly acclaimed sales revenue growth expert Doug C. Brown interviews CEOs, business owners, and professionals who serve them to uncover and share actionable tips and methods behind their bulletproof sales strategies. Topics covered on the show include their failures, struggles, secrets, and processes that help them succeed in selling millions to billions of dollars of their products and services, all with the sole aim of helping you grow your business. If you are eager to know the most effective sales secrets from the A players of the game, then the CEO Sales Strategies podcast is certainly the place to be.
Hey everyone, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies podcast, bringing you another amazing guest. His name is Ben Johnson. Benjamin R. Johnson is his LinkedIn profile. And he is a CEO of a company called Particle41. They're a software development and tech services business for development. And brought him on today because we were going to talk about really two things. One, how do you go from a technician's point of view, somebody who worked within the company in the tech side or from a development side, and then transition into a CEO? And what's the actual kind of pathway and mindset that we've got to have in order to actually pull that off successfully? And he has. So A, that's A, and B, it started going into also how do we launch a new product, right? So for those of you who have products that are existing and you want to upgrade them, or products that you're thinking about, like what is the kind of the genesis of that whole process? We talked about those 2 points in detail. So without further ado, let's go speak to Ben. Hey, Ben, welcome to the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. Would you tell everybody what Particle41 does, what you do there, so we can kind of set the frame for this?
Yeah, we're a software consultancy. We focus on software application development, data science, and DevOps. But yeah, if you have any business needs related to software, we're a really good tech partner for your venture.
Well, thank you. And we're going to talk today because you've done this, going from, we'll call it step zero to a startup, or from a technician to a CEO, if you will, of a startup. And I have found that many people have challenges with that transition. So what's the difference of starting up from ground zero? Let's take from the technician's standpoint, from going there and then having to become a CEO of a company. But what's the genesis, I guess, of the transition of mind that has to happen there?
Sure. Well, I would say when I started my career, there were a lot more things that we had to do to be able to serve products on the internet. My first company was an online travel company back in the early 2000s. And, we had to do a lot of work just to get the travel website out the door. But fortunately, the market has evolved. There's things like the cloud available to us, things like modern software frameworks that we can know about. And so it's been easier and easier to kind of learn those things and then not have so much 0 to 60 work to do on the tech side. But I would say just the evolution to good strategy around product development, making sure we're not wasting time in the market, and understanding how to speak to people holistically, and really tie what we're doing in the software and the software team to their commercial roadmap and their commercial aspirations, and being able to really bridge that gap has been super important.
That's interesting. So I want to dig into that a bit, because holistically, what does that mean in the terms of software, or in the terms of what you do?
Sure. So when we're advising CEOs or CTOs, what we're looking at is, do they have a roadmap? Do they have an org chart? What's their mission? What are the corporate goals? And we're trying to pull all of that together so that we know why the teams that we're providing are iterating, like what are they fighting for? When you're a developer, your reward for doing a really good job in this particular iteration or with this amount of work at hand is that, in a couple of weeks, you get more work, right? That's kind of your reward. You keep going, you keep living to fight another day. So we want to make sure that our developers are tied to the client's mission and they understand what it is. What I always say is my teams do best when they're crushing mountains of work, but we need to work with our customer to develop that mountain of work so that our teams inevitably succeed. And so when we do that, we're looking at, what is their go-to-market strategy? What kinds of features are the clients saying? What are the customers saying? And really help them with both the product ownership and strategic planning for the product and the actual getting the work done. The worst thing when you're a techie is to write code that nobody uses. So we want to be able to help the clients see around corners. We have myself and my leadership team, we have many years of scar tissue. So can we help them with some of those common mistakes?
So I find something you're saying really interesting here, because what I heard was you plan from an operational point or from a development point, as you call it, development, which a lot of companies would call that operations and delivery.
Sure. Technical operations is a fair term.
But you're looking at the CEO outcomes or the outcomes of the business from that standpoint, and then everything else is kind of rolling in from that delivery point. Am I getting that correct? Because a lot of companies, the reason I'm asking, Ben, a lot of companies look at it from the sales perspective that they've got to deliver it. And then when there's a handoff to DevOps, if you will, it's not always clean. But
sure.
When you're coming at it from the operations side, then sales must understand what the operation side is doing, and therefore the delivery seems to be far more congruent to a client than it would be if we just started with sales and then dropped it on ops, if you will.
Yeah, no, totally. We are constantly trying to connect the desired outcome to the work. So even though we serve up our services, much like staff augmentation is a common model. Paying per person per month for some teammates is a common way to price software development services. So we're not reinventing the wheel there. But what we are doing is wrapping it in a layer of expertise and results orientedness that I think makes us very different in the market. And I really had to come out of my shoes as a technologist over the years to figure out how to really pull that out of the CEOs and CTOs that I work with, so that we could be there for them exactly what they need when they need it. We've recovered a lot of projects, Doug, for in-house teams that over-engineered the solution, trying to build the perfect system rather than listening to what their CEO or CTO were trying to accomplish in the market. Back a couple of years, if we rewind before VC money was so easy to get, you would go back to a dawn of time where bootstrapping was this common buzzword. All the YouTube videos were about it, and we've kind of lost this era of bootstrapping or figuring out what is that true MVP. And over the past many years, our MVPs have gotten larger and larger, and there's been a failure to launch because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So we found a lot of counsel in saying, don't manage to a big bang. Let's bring it down to something that we can deliver, have a customer use and give us feedback on. And then let's pick up a feedback cycle that aligns, like you were saying, sales and product development to be a common thread or a conduit between the customer and your technical delivery. When I work with SaaS companies, the coolest thing that I can make happen is that a customer says, I really wish right here you had such and such, and I can turn that around in days, not weeks, not months.
Mm-hmm.
And then the sales guy can go like, hey, we heard you. Here's your feature was such a great idea. Your suggestion was such a good idea. We've returned that. They may have 5 or 6 other big features that they really want you to do, but because you got them that one, they're willing to hang out, keep subscribing, let your roadmap take its course, and they're kind of in with you from a customer loyalty standpoint, just because you heard one thing that they said that you could quickly execute. So that's something that's come out of this CTO to CEO transition, where I can leverage my strength of getting software delivered quickly and tie that into the sales process. And it just builds more feedback from the customer, more opportunities for us to win, and help them feel a part of our process, the end customer.
So when somebody's developing a new product, whether it's software as what you specialize in, or it's anything, right? That they're coming out with a new product. How many features, or this may not be even a fair question to ask, but I've got to believe that there's a set, like a core number of, hey, if you had 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever the number is, that it's acceptable if the market is looking for these things, the market will tolerate while you build the rest out. Do you have a kind of a number or a quantification for that?
Well, there is an adoption curve. So you could look at that bell curve that, the MBA school would say, hey, this is an adoption curve. And you would say, like, as we go on, listening to our customers, building the features that they're really asking for, then you would float up the adoption curve. And maybe the first people you talk to don't come in until, you're 6 to 8 months into this process, but you should be building that pipeline. You should be nurturing them or sending them out roadmap updates. And because of that, you might have talked to them a few months ago, and they're signing up now because you finally said something about QuickBooks integration, or just that one thing that they super needed, that you heard them on, and now they're ready to adopt. So it should follow your adoption curve. But you should, if you're doing your sales right, you should get a glut in your pipeline, like a lot of committed AR, and then, see that come into closure as the features produce. And as a CTO, like, I would want you to be on point, or your name against that. Like, hey, if we build these features, we're going to get this demand that we're seeing in the pipeline.
So I'm purposely skewing our podcast here to this new product launch type thing, because I've had so many people come and say, listen, I would like to have an expert on who understands new product launch. And you are an expert in doing this, because you're doing this on a consistent basis, whether it be software or we're going to run a manufacturing company or an auto dealership or whatever. If I understood what you just said correctly, is you are going to start the marketing and sales process prior to the development of this, get a glut of people into the pipeline, and then try to release this off to a certain number of people, in this case, software. They're going to take a test drive, if you will, in an automobile term, and drive the vehicle around for a while, telling you, this is great, the suspension's awful, we need an FM radio versus just a Sirius satellite, radio, whatever they're telling you. And then you're going to then validate that with the future potential buyers. And you're going to tie all this in, and that's how you continue to keep updating your product. Did I get that right, or did I miss something?
You did get that right. And in the beginning, you may have to offer like a freemium product to get that interest and establish that, like, give them some kind of value exchange. Back in the bootstrapping days, they were even trying to do tests with like ebooks, or hey, if this service exists, LinkedIn surveys. I think we've gone past that, and where we deliver something. But I love the idea, and I'm really encouraging entrepreneurs to start small, start talking to your users, start building up that pipeline, and then working with a dev team that can deliver an agreed upon prototype within 90 days, a really functional MVP within 120, 150 days, right? Like, really trying to pace a minimum viable product, and then showing that to users and seeing if it's making a change in the business. SaaS is tough because there really has to be a direct SaaS exchange, but tech-enabled services, if they're offering a service with like human capital and they want to just, button it up with technology, that becomes a little easier from like a financial planning standpoint. But both tech-enabled services and SaaS services could benefit from this kind of agile model.
So when you're saying the latter, the human capital into a tech fulfillment, give me a couple examples of companies maybe that are doing something like that.
Sure, like you would see this in a brand like LegalZoom. They're doing your LLC formation for you. They're keeping your company in compliance. They could either do that manually, like they could take your money and go do it manually with human operations, or they could take it in through a website, put it through some kind of process, make it easier for them, right? And what they're doing is they're trying to take the per order ops time or human capital time from some amount per order to like next to zero per order. And so we work on a lot of projects that are building technology around a service that could otherwise be delivered with just blood, sweat, and tears, and trying to put tech around that and make it more patterned, more standard, and less human, so that the people that you are hiring to run your business can do other things, manage more clients, and scale. So that's what I mean by a tech-enabled service. The great thing about tech-enabled services is the service side can be revenue generating very quickly, right? You can take orders for that service. So, when they have robots to do plumbing, you'll see like an evolution in the plumbing industry. Well, with digital services, there are certain things that could be done online or complexities that we can capture. I mean, now we can order a cab on our phone and we take it for granted. So even Uber is an example of a tech-enabled service. There's so much technology now that the service part of it, you don't even think about anymore.
It's interesting. Can any or almost any business do that?
I would say if your business model is SaaS, then you have to have a product eventually that a person is willing to pay a monthly or annual subscription for. So the gavel comes out a little more often on your SaaS product is it offering the value that somebody is willing to pay for? That supply demand is a digital supply and demand. Are they signing up? Are they using? Are they adopting the SaaS software? And let's face it, SaaS businesses are not for the faint of heart, because you don't get paid until your software is good enough. And so that's where giving them something for free, loading up your pipeline with committed ARR based on features that the real people say they would use when you have them, and getting started on that pipeline, getting started with your ICP, your ideal customer profile, is really important to do, I believe, early, sometimes before you do have a completed product to market.
Interesting. So you had said something earlier, and by the way, folks, we're speaking with Mr. Ben Johnson. He owns a company called Particle41. That's a 41, the number, .com. Ben, you had said something earlier about stepping out of your own shoes and stepping into a CEO thought process. So, you went from CTO to CEO, right? You're thinking differently. How does one make a transition like that? Is it out of like, hey, I need to morph into something, so I'm just going to try it? Or is there maybe even a pathway for somebody to think about doing this? Because a lot of people that I have talked to, they go, oh my gosh, that's fear. What if I mess it up? What if I don't succeed? So sure. How do people sort of like frame their mind and take the step?
Yeah, I think that there's some great things in engineering, the idea of process and the idea of like that. And in software, we use frameworks. Frameworks take away choices from us, but they give us simplicity. So there's an exchange of choice for simplicity. And so when I look at certain business problems, I try to figure out like, what is the framework? And I think that mixed with like some first principles. So when you're in tech, you're really focused on solution. Give me a problem, I'll give you the solution, I'll go attack that solution, and I'll be kind of dead to everybody while I'm hyper focused. In tech, focus is the currency. Give me a mission and I'm focused on that mission. As a CEO, I've had to come detach and look at the layer above the solution, or why, and kind of use frameworks like OKRs are great. If I can come to an agreement with what my customers' OKRs are, that's fantastic. That's really a good partnership mechanism. So I understand what kind of goals in the market they're trying to accomplish, and then we can fit solutions to that. And then also just really thinking about that strategy and the strategy elements. And it's a process, right? It's a series of discussions that we've defined that'll help us get to deliverables around roadmap, around org chart, what kind of staff do you need, and really guiding the overall structure of the business into the solutions that need to be created for them to succeed.
So frameworks take away choices, but create simplicity. That's what I heard you say. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yep.
So why would we not want frameworks in any business? Because most businesses are down to really simplistic. I mean, it's and we are I don't know, a hospital, right? I mean, that's a business, whether people agree or not. But the reality is, it's to serve patients in a capacity, move them through there as quick as they can, and get them healthy, get them out, but get paid, right? I mean, that's kind of a framework.
Right.
Should all businesses, or is there, because it just came to me and I'm like, is there a business that should not create frameworks? Because that would create working leverage within the company, and it would create consistency, which would create less stress. Might I can hear people go, no, but innovation, what about innovation? But I mean, so the question that I have is, should all businesses be looking at frameworks more so?
I think so. I think anytime you can bring it down to some simple core values, or um, these simple frameworks for understanding things. But the reality is we get dug into the details. I used to think that to be productive, I needed to be writing code that day, right? To have a productive day, I measured my productivity in a given day as the number of lines of code that I would write. That was as a tech guy. Now, I think as a CEO, I'm more focused on what are the decisions I've made today, or how have I helped other people make unlocking decisions so that they can keep moving towards the goals, either our goals or our clients' goals. And then constantly looking at better ways to communicate, where we're boiling up details. Like, development is a detail gardening type of career. You're in there writing lines of code to represent details that actually represent rules or standards in an actual business. But that's not something that a CEO needs to occupy themselves with. They more need to say, hey, where are we trying to get to, and when are we going to be done? And so we need to figure out simple ways of conveying that to to our buyer, that helps them move forward quickly and know that we got this.
So could I classify a technician, or people who are not in the CEO level, many of them, that it's more of a get it done and be accurate, or get it accurately done, and that
Yes.
a CEO then has to think more about how to make it more efficient, how to optimize it, how to create leverage to get more done.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, exactly. How can you fundamentally, how could I be 4 to 6 weeks ahead of my team? So especially since we're in a remote world these days, one thing that we've been finding across the 31 active teams that we have is that the teams that have enough vision to be 4 to 6 weeks in front of them with the more detailed design and requirements around their work, those are the hyper productive teams. The ones that are having to circle back and ask the business, okay, is this right? Or what do you want us to do next? Those things are really costly to a business. And so we're trying very hard up front to help the business plan out and have vision, so that these teams can stay, essentially the work order, or what they should work on, is ahead of where they are. And I just think that's a huge nugget to even if you weren't in software development, what would it look like to be 2, 4, 6 weeks ahead of your team in terms of what they need from you to be successful? I think that would be a huge exercise for many business owners.
Excellent. We're speaking with Mr. Ben Johnson, Particle41, 41.com is with the number 4 and 1. Ben, if people want to get a hold of you or know more about the company or anything like that, what would you recommend? How do they do so?
So I'm on LinkedIn as Benjamin R. Johnson. They can also email me at ben@particle41. I'd love to talk to any entrepreneur that's trying to get to the next level. You don't necessarily have to need to develop a product, but I'd be excited to talk to any CEOs or CTOs trying to succeed.
Awesome. Well, Ben, thank you for being on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast.
Awesome. Thank you.
If you think about a technician, and I wrote this down, as somebody who accurately gets things done, right? The person who delivers and gets things done. And then you could think about the CEO. The CEO, as he said, you've got to stay 4 to 6 weeks ahead of your teams in what they're thinking. In other words, the CEO is making things more efficient, more optimized. The CEO is thinking about ways of generating leverage and money and profitability and how to support the teams of people that are working for that company who either directly report to the CEO or they report to somebody who reports to the CEO. Now, that is a different thought process. Now, a lot of people, especially when they're the startup person in a company, they start out and they think like a technician because they have to. They also think like a CEO in some regards, but they only have themselves or maybe 1 or 2 people, right? And so it's all about sales in every business, driving it forward. But as you start to grow the company, then as a CEO, we have to change our mind a little and then a lot and shift it from, okay, my job was this as the technician, but now it's going to be this. And that sometimes a lot of people I've found, and I do mean a lot of people, they fight that process. It takes them a lot longer than they want to have happen. And it's because they still know the technician's role and they're holding on to that because, no one could do it better than they could. That's usually part of the challenge for them. So second thing, when you're bringing a product to market, we laid it out pretty simply, right? And you want to keep it simple. And, it's about going to market before you go to market. In other words, developing a client base before you actually even develop into the MVP and the development so you can get the feedback of what people are looking for, get subscribers, get paid subscribers, and then you can organically start funding your technology build out if it's technology. But if it's not technology, you can do the same thing with a non-technology product. You can still get subscribers, still build out the base, and then launch it. The challenge is so many people are impatient and they're not willing to go through that process. And guess what? Traditionally, you'll miss a lot of stuff that you didn't have to build. So you've spent money that you didn't have to and took time where you didn't have to. And the second thing is you may run out of runway space that way. In other words, you have a cash burn of whatever. So you want to continue that cash to be strong and not burn out of that, thus not making it through that process. If you love the subject here on this thing, I would ask you to go give it a 5-star review if you like this episode. If you or yourself, you yourself or someone else is an expert or has expertise in a certain area, or you just want to hear about a certain thing for shows, like I would love to know more about this, let us know. And either we'll have you or your expert, or we'll find an expert to cover that show. What we do is we listen to everyone, and when we get enough inquiries on that specific subject, we go out and we actually source the expert for you so we can bring that show to you. You do that by sending an email into us at youmatter, youmatter, at ceosalesstrategies.com, and we will respond to every inquiry that comes in. So if you yourself or someone wants to get themselves into what we call the 1% earners category through selling, in other words, you want to be at that top 1% of earners, or you just really massively want to shift from point A to point B, we are releasing a 1% Earners Academy coming out where we're going to teach you how to do that. We're also developing a SaaS product, which is a prospecting automated and automated, meaningful follow-up system that leads to conversions. If you'd like to be on the waiting list for either or, just reach out to me at doug@ceosalesstrategies.com. Let me know, and we'll get you access to get to the waiting list. And then we'll communicate with you as we're going along. All right. As always, go sell something. Go sell a lot of it. Sell it profitably. Play win-win. Help them win. Help you win at the same time. It's the best relationship and spawns more referrals, more regeneration of repeat business long-term. Until next time, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast saying, to your success.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. What is something that you learned that you could act on today? Don't forget to schedule it now, or it may never get forward momentum. If you find our content valuable, please leave a favorable review and let us know what you liked. Please also share this with others if the content will help them. For our show notes, other episodes, and more interesting content and resources, please visit ceosalesstrategiespodcast.com. See you soon, and to your continued success.